Vampires aren't sexy. They were never supposed to be. The original vampire legends, they were about corpses crawling out of graves to chew on your face. Forget everything Hollywood told you. The glitter, the fangs, the brooding in castles. The truth behind vampires is nastier, messier, and a whole lot bloodier than you'd expect. In this video, we're unearthing the real origin of the vampire myth, and the disturbing reasons why it won't die. And no, it's not about romance. It's about death, disease, and fear. Lots of fear. Let's get one thing straight. The first vampires didn't sparkle in the sun. They rotted. They stank. They oozed black blood and made terrifying chewing noises in their graves. Yeah, not exactly Edward Cullen material. The word vampire didn't even exist until the 18th century. But the idea? That goes way back. Like ancient Mesopotamia kind of back. Thousands of years ago, people were already telling stories about spirits or undead creatures that sucked the life out of the living. In ancient Greece, they had Empusa, a shape-shifting demon who lured men and drank their blood. In India, they feared the Vetala, spirits that possessed corpses. And in Eastern Europe, that's where things got really dark. These weren't charming undead nobles. They were terrifying, bloated corpses with purple skin from drinking blood. In some regions, they didn't even need to bite you. They'd just show up, sit on your chest while you slept, and slowly drain your life away. Nightmares? Maybe. But for the people living through plagues, famine, and war, this was real. So where did the vampire myth actually come from? Here's where it gets creepy. Most of it came from real physical things that people saw and misunderstood. Let's say your cousin dies suddenly. You bury him, right? But a few days later, there's another death. And then another. People panic. They dig up the first corpse to check if something's wrong. And what do they find? Body hasn't decayed. The fingernails look longer. There's blood on the mouth. The coffin is scratched from the inside. You'd probably freak out too. But here's the science behind it. Bodies decay slower in cold soil. Gums recede, making teeth look longer. Skin shrinks, so nails look like they've grown. Gases build up in the stomach, pushing blood out through the mouth and nose. To the modern mind, that's biology. But to someone in the 1600s, that was straight up vampire activity. And what did they do about it? This is the wild part. They didn't just rebury the body. Nope. They went full zombie apocalypse. They drove stakes through the heart. Not to kill a vampire, but to pin it down in its grave. They cut off heads and stuffed the mouths with garlic coins or even bricks. They burned the corpses just to be safe. And this didn't happen once or twice. It was widespread. Across Eastern Europe, there were entire manuals written about how to identify and destroy vampires. Towns held vampire trials, like Salem but bloodier. In 1725, a Serbian man named Petar Blagojevic died, and then supposedly came back to kill 9 neighbors. The panic was so real, local officials dug up his body and found it fresh with blood at the mouth. So they staked him, burned him, and called it a day. It's like every time something went wrong. Bad crops, sudden deaths, illness. People blamed the dead. Because you couldn't punch a disease, but you could stab a corpse. Now fast forward to the 18th century, and suddenly vampires go viral. Reports of vampire activity started spreading across Europe. Newspapers, pamphlets, books, all talking about these creatures in graveyards and villages. People were eating it up, and that's when writers jumped in. Enter John Polidori, who wrote The Vampire in 1819. The first vampire story with a sexy twist. His vampire wasn't some bloated corpse. It was a smooth, charming aristocrat. Then came Bram Stoker in 1897 with Dracula, and everything changed. Dracula took all the old folklore and turned it into something new. A powerful, intelligent vampire, living in a creepy castle, seducing women, drinking blood, avoiding sunlight, garlic, and crucifixes. It was horrifying, but also kind of cool. And that's the shift right there. The vampire became desirable. Why? Because it wasn't just about blood anymore. It was about temptation, control, power, immortality. Stuff people secretly wanted but couldn't say out loud. Vampires became metaphors. In the Victorian era, they symbolized sexual repression. In the 1980s, they represented fear of disease, like AIDS. In the 2000s, they were brooding loners in high school. Twilight. And now, they're back in every genre. Horror, romance, comedy, anime. But even as they've evolved, one thing stays the same. Vampires don't go away. And maybe that's because deep down, we want them around. But here's the twist no one talks about. The vampire myth is not just about death. It's about blame. When a town blamed a vampire for killing people, what they were really doing was trying to make sense of the chaos. Think about it. During plagues, people said vampires were spreading disease. When babies died suddenly, vampires were accused of stealing their breath. When someone changed after a trauma, they weren't different. They were possessed. The vampire became a scapegoat for everything people didn't understand. And you know what's messed up? We still do that. Every time we blame a group of people for corrupting society, we're playing the same game. Every time we villainize outsiders instead of fixing the real problems, we're driving modern-day stakes through imaginary hearts. Vampires might not be real, but our fear of the other? That's alive and kicking. And let's not forget how some people use the myth for power. In Romania, the legend of Vlad, the Impaler, the real guy behind Dracula, wasn't just a scary story. It was propaganda. Vlad ruled with terror, impaled his enemies on spikes, and said he was protecting his people from outsiders. Sound familiar? The vampire myth became a tool. To control. To scare. To unite people under fear. And we still see that today. Only the vampires have new names. So here's the real question. Why do we keep bringing them back? We've staked them, burned them, mocked them, made them hot. And still, vampires rise. Maybe because we secretly want what they have. Eternal youth. Freedom from rules. Power over death. A reason to feel different in a world that demands sameness. Or maybe because deep down, we're not afraid of being drained by a vampire. We're afraid of being forgotten. Vampires don't age. They don't die. They don't fade away. And in a world where everything feels temporary, your job, your looks, your social media likes, the idea of lasting forever, that's kind of irresistible. Even if it costs you your soul. Want to know the one monster scarier than the vampire? Watch this next video. You'll never sleep the same again.